Throw to first and Homer Bailey for the second time in his major league career has tossed a no-hitter. Oh, are you kidding me? Holy Moses, the second player in major league history to hit 7 home runs in the first 10 games. In the air and the Reds win it. What a dream beginning to the career of Trey Bruce.
All right, welcome into Chatterbox Reds, the home for quick Reds content and coverage after every single Reds game, and brought to you, as always, by Betfred Sportsbook. Nick, we're back in the win column, so that's a good thing. Hopefully you enjoyed your Easter Sunday. At least it helped, maybe, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, hey, what a win for the Reds. What a difference a day makes, Trace. I tell you what, man, baseball can be as cruel as it can be on Saturday, and then can be as great as it gets on Sunday. That's baseball for you.
And to your point, when I was recreating the stream and the title for today's show, I had to change Reds blow ninth inning lead to then just Reds rally in ninth inning to win. So it was literally the opposite opportunity that happens in baseball from time to time. Some things we're going to get into today. Obviously, we'll do the box score recap in just a moment. We have on the J bar the bullpen, the ninth inning rally, Connor Overton. You got over all caps. We'll get into that in a minute. And then obviously we'll finish the show with Reds MILB as we always do. Nick, will you pleasantly and provide the beautiful thing that happened today in the box score recap for the Cincinnati Reds?
Yeah, so I mean, Overton gave up 2 runs in the first 2 innings. The first run was scored by Kyle Schwarber. It was a really unfortunate play for the Reds because it looked like the Reds had Schwarber dead to rights at the plate, but Newman hit him in the back. Just kind of one of those throws where just unfortunate. I'm not really much I don't think you can do to really avoid that.
Just not hit him in the back, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was a long throw, and it was a tough throw.
Well, I mean, you said it. I don't know what you could do. I'll tell you what you could do. Just don't hit him in the back. All right, keep going, Nick.
I guess that would help. But then the Reds did come back. They got 2 runs in the fourth. But then Overton, he gave up a 2-run bomb, and it was a bomb.
Yes, it was.
To Mr. Alec Boehm, made it 4-2. Overton left after 4. Not a terrible outing, not a great outing, kind of the Connor Overton special so far this year. But hey, Trace, what a difference Sunday made for the Reds bullpen versus Friday and Saturday. Reds bullpen 5 1-hit shutout innings, no walks in this one. So they were outstanding, as good as you can get, and it wasn't the big names. It was Fernando Cruz bouncing back. It was Herget making his Reds debut, and then it was Ian Jabot. We'll talk about here in a second. But they gave the Reds a chance, and the Reds were able to scratch across 1 run on a Vossler double in the 8th. And then Trace, we're going to the 9th inning, and I got to be honest, I'm just like feeling like, man, Reds are about to get swept, and I don't think they played all that bad this weekend. It was one of those series where it's like, hey, I don't really feel like they deserve a sweep. Like it feels like they should have at least got 1 win out of here, but they put together a rally. Stuart Fairchild walked. Then he stole second base, really heads-up stolen base, stole it off the pitcher, got a great jump, just barely beat the throw. Then India walked. TJ Friedl was able to sneak a single in between the hole on the left side of the infield. And then Jake Fraley fell behind 0-2 in the count and then ripped a double to bring home all 3 runs right over the head of Nick Castellanos. Just a big moment for Fraley. He fell behind 0-2 in that count, too. Fought back. And then Ian Jabot, he got redemption, too. 1, 2, 3 in the 9th. He struck out Castellanos. He struck out yesterday's hero Stott, and then got a fly out to end the game. Reds win 6-4. What a wild weekend for the Reds.
Yeah, no doubt. As always, if you're in the chat, feel free to. I'm obviously talking on YouTube. I think we're on Twitter and we're on Facebook tonight as well. But if you're in the chat, feel free to pop in things that we want to talk about. But obviously, next on the list is the bullpen with the title Bullpen Shoves. Listen, this bullpen, I don't think they're going to win any awards this year by any means, but they have actually pitched well in a decent amount of games. I know there's some games where it's quite literally fallen off the tracks, and a lot of the statistical nature things that people are going to point to are going to be inflated, I think, a little bit just because of a couple of the poor outings. But as far as the biggest thing I think people are going to point to, or the biggest thing that I think people will always be upset with this bullpen is they do currently lead the league in losses in Major League Baseball. The only thing about that, though, is, Nick, and I think that's a little unfair, is because from a starting pitcher perspective, Hunter Green's had 2 really short outings. I think Lodolo didn't really go all that long in his first outing, if I remember correctly. Ashcraft did give him a good start, and then you got guys like Connor Overton, who, for all intents and purposes, probably aren't going to have all that many games where they're going to go too long in. So I don't really know how much of that leans on the fact that that's just a really bad bullpen, or if it's just the starting pitchers are just not going deep enough in games where it lends itself the opportunity for this bullpen to have losses. But at the end of the day, they threw well, and I want to mention something really quickly and get your opinion on this as well. Is like the bullpen in my estimation is the last piece that I would worry about or go after when it's time to win. And the reason for that is because a lot of bullpen guys are so flaky, man. Like they'll have a really, really good year, and then the next following year, like they're nowhere near as good as they once were. And then you got a guy that might be terrible one year, and then he bounces back and he throws well. And I just don't think it's one of those things where this team and this club is going to go out and spend money on bullpen guys when they, in their mind, are thinking, okay, we might be competitive next year, but then the year after that is when we really need to solidify guys, and we need to make sure that we're ready to be competitive and compete. And like I said, play for not only the playoffs but the pennant. And I know people are frustrated, and they're like, "Oh, the Castellinis aren't going to spend money," and all this rhetoric. And I think some of it is warranted, Nick, because in years past, maybe they did have a chance to go out and solidify the bullpen, and they didn't do that. But I guess it's just being an optimist. I truly think they're going to fix the bullpen, or at least they're going to try to fix it by spending some money when the time is right. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't. I think the bullpen absolutely should be the last thing the Reds are spending money on, that they're investing on. I know our guy Clay Snowden had a tweet from yesterday that really rang true with me, is a rebuilding team should not be focusing a ton of their energy and efforts into their bullpen. Yeah, I mean, there's been teams like the Rockies that they've tried over and over again to have a good bullpen. They went out one year and spent like $60 million on their bullpen, and all 3 guys were complete and utter failures at the end of their contract. So, I think so. And the Reds also have a lot of young pitchers, like guys like Brandon Williamson, probably are going to get moved to the bullpen unless they completely change the narrative surrounding them. So they're going to have a lot of guys, and I think that Trace bullpen, it's not as good as it showed today. It was great today, but it's not as good as it showed today, and it also wasn't as bad as it showed on Friday and Saturday. Bullpens are just going to be inconsistent. I bet the Phillies, though, today,
Yeah, I mean, listen,
they're thinking to themselves, hey,
right.
man, we had 5 innings against Fernando Cruz, Kevin Herget, and Ian Jabot, and we couldn't scratch across a run. And
Right. Listen, the Philly talk radio stations are like. Let me tell you something. When that game was over today, I don't care if it's Easter Sunday or not. The radio stations' phones were absolutely lit up like a Christmas tree. There's no doubt about it. Nothing infuriates fans more than a bullpen either not living up their end of the bargain, and or you not being able to score runs against said bullpen. Like it is very feast or famine when it comes to the temperament of fans most of the time when it comes to the bullpen. And not to cut you off, but just to add to your point, I bet Philly fans right now are absolutely pissed at the Reds. One, not only did they not give up any runs from their bullpen perspective, but then on top of that, they take the lead in the 9th inning the way they did. So,
yeah, and they use Kimbrel in the 8th, and
same
Dominguez
thing.
in the 9th. They don't really have like a fluid closer situation. They've got like I think 4 guys they kind of like, but they also kind of hate. So they're figuring it out too right now. But yeah, no, just a wild turn of events over 24 hours for sure.
Yeah, we Adam brings up a point. We got a couple guys that are obviously going to come up here and help us. I think I really liked Sims when he was healthy. I don't know if he'll ever be what he was when he comes back or not. But not taking anything away from Santillan, I just Sims was a guy. That said, let's get into the ninth inning rally. You had mentioned it. Obviously, it wasn't, again, another situation where I feel like the Reds earned it. Like the Reds earned it a little bit. I know that they're going to say that the Phillies bullpen blew it, and that's what you say, you blow saves. But the Reds, I feel like, at least, I don't feel like it was handed to them, right? And I'll still stand on the fact that yesterday, I feel like the Phillies kind of went out and then they won the game. Now, I know there was some control issues by the Reds yesterday, but at the end of the day, your overall thoughts on the ninth inning, and do you feel the same way in regards to the fact that I think the Reds actually went out and took it?
Yeah, I think the Reds really grinded this game out. They had 9 walks throughout the game. Look, this would have been a very easy game. You're down 4-2. You've had a weekend that just hasn't gone your way the whole time. Right. David Bell didn't throw his best relievers out there. He kind of threw the guys just to get you through the game, and Fernando Cruz and Herget. It would have been an easy game just to pack it in and say, hey, not our weekend. Let's move on. But I tell you what, the Reds, I thought, had quality at-bats all night. And then when they got to the ninth inning, man, they were just able to, Fairchild. It wasn't the walk that he earned was a quality walk. Like, he took some tough pitches. He worked the count. India the same way. It wasn't. Sir Anthony Dominguez wasn't like throwing the ball all over the place. That they made him work. And then TJ Friedel put a nice swing on the ball. And then Jake Fraley, man, I feel like he's getting close to like that level of almost like Jesse Winker was. I think
I thought you were going to say something becoming,
else. No, I think Jake Fraley is a legit hitter in this league against right-handed pitching. I think he's one of the better hitters. I think he might be the best hitter on the Reds right now. But yeah, I mean, he had just a really, really good at bat, falling behind 0-2, and then just putting a great swing on it.
Do you think that he's possibly maybe an everyday player at some point, Nick, or do you want to keep running out Kevin Newman, who's hitting $180? Just asking.
I don't know about that.
I just bringing up the point. I'm not saying. I'm just, there's a little tongue in cheek there, but we'll see. I mean, do we still like Kevin Newman or not? Just asking.
I don't have a problem with Kevin Newman.
All right.
I have no Newman issues.
I don't mean, maybe he made some plays when I wasn't watching it. To be fair to everybody, I want to openly admit I did not watch every pitch of this game. It was Easter. I did have a lot of Easter festivities going on. I'm a big golf fan, so the Masters was happening at the same time. So I was trying to flip all over the place and trying to be somewhat of a decent parent, which I probably wasn't. And I did see one ball that Kevin Newman couldn't make a play on. I know that. Maybe he made some great plays in the other parts of the game, but he hit a guy in the back with a ball, and then he just booted a ball when he was ranging to his right a little bit. But I'm sure he's great. But at the end of the day, he's 29 years old. He's hitting $180. Jose Barrero's not playing. I know Barrero's hitting 140, okay, but he's hitting the ball hard. And I know that I also want to say that Kevin Newman has had a couple good games. So that's my piece for today. It's going to continue until something changes, by the way. Just going to keep on dragging. I don't want to say dragging him through the mud, but maybe. I don't know what we're going to call it. All right.
Slam coming tomorrow.
Yeah, he probably will. That's what happens. You start complaining about a guy, and then they just go off the reservation. I'm sure Jason Vossler did that to a lot of people in this city. Connor Overton, you have over capitalized. You think that the Reds are going to make a move? Is that true? Is that what I'm getting off of that, or no?
I don't know. It just felt like such an easy play on words. I don't even necessarily think it's fair.
Oh.
I also was maybe thinking when Connor Overton pitches, you take the over on Betfred Sportsbook.
Take the over and runs. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, take the runs over.
That's a glowing review of Connor, man. What a beautiful thing. We should send that to his family. Such nice things you're saying about him.
Yeah.
All right, but go ahead.
I mean, I don't know. The guy's at ERA over 10, so I'm not going to sit here and carry his water. But he did only allow 2 hard hit balls according to the Statcast today. So it's not like he was getting crushed. He did walk 3 batters though, so that didn't help things. Interesting today, Luke Weaver started. Not to jump too far ahead into the Reds MLB, but it kind of goes into this.
Yeah, go ahead.
He started 4 innings, no hits today. He did walk 2. But he started for Louisville today, so it seems very convenient that they moved Connor Overton to this day and they started Luke Weaver on the same day. Seems like maybe an Easter egg, Trace.
Oh, is that what you're saying?
Just really full of it tonight.
No, I like that. You know, the other question I have for you is how long is Will Myers going to get to go? Now he did have a double today, but I was just saying, let's just say that he did not double today. How
Will
long?
Myers is,
How long until the city of Cincinnati hates Will Myers? It's getting close.
I don't think it matters. Will Myers is earning the $7 million this year. I think he's going to get all the run he wants.
God.
I like Myers.
You're right. But one thing that's actually, and this is like a weird thing, one thing that's irritated me about Myers, it has nothing to do with his play. All right? It's like 48 degrees outside, and this dude's bundled up like we're playing in fucking, excuse my language, we're playing in Alaska in the middle of January. I mean, dude, it's like, come on, man. You don't need to wear a winter coat out there. Might be able to move a little bit better if he didn't have all that. Is San Diego getting to him or what?
I don't know. One thing, looking at Myers, looking at his career numbers, he's got a pretty large sample at this point. April and May have not been his best months. His best months have been June, July. So maybe it is the warmer weather. Maybe he doesn't like playing in the cold.
Got a little Joey Votto in him.
Yeah, I think he'll. I think Myers is gonna have a nice season for the Reds. I don't know how good he can be.
Define nice.
I think he's gonna be an above average hitter. I would be very shocked if we get to the end of Will Myers' run, whether that's a trade deadline or the end of the year, and his OPS is OPS plus is below 100. I don't see that happening. He has a pretty good track record, so but the Reds need him. I mean, the Reds don't have very many right-handed bats that are good hitters. You have to have a guy like Will Myers just to kind of give your lineup some balance.
Well,
but yeah, I mean,
we got Kevin Newman.
This guy, Will Myers has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of his last 8 years, he's been above 100 in OPS plus. So I mean, you got to give this guy some run.
That's fair. No, listen, it's April 9th. I mean, I'm not going to be.
Yeah.
A
lot of season left.
Some of this is a little humor. Some of it's tongue in cheek. Some of it is like if this guy goes up here and has more terrible at bats, at some point I'm just going to get tired of seeing it. Any other thoughts? Does the chat have anything that we want to talk about? Matt McClain time. I'm the biggest Matt McClain fan that maybe there is. I am a Matt McClain stan, but we're not calling him up. We're not doing that. First of all, it doesn't really make sense right now. Barrero hasn't even gotten an opportunity, in my opinion, to be able to see the field enough to get an idea of whether or not we want to keep him, stick him around or not. Second of all, we're not going to bring up a guy and have him platoon at all. Spencer Steer looks like he's locked down third base for the foreseeable future. I don't see any reason as to why he's going to move ever at all, unless just we drop off the face of the earth to a certain extent, which can happen. I'm not saying it can't. But where does he play? I mean, is he going to play shortstop? That doesn't really make any sense. So I don't really buy into the idea of Matt McClain coming up. I do think he comes up later this year because we're going to have a little bit more, maybe some answers from some of these guys, and then they're going to want to probably see if Matt McClain can replicate what he's done at the minor league level, at the big league level a little bit. So then we go into next year, Nick, and we can have some answers like we've talked about thousands of times on this show. But Jonathan India is going to be penciled in to play second base. That's one of those weird things with this team. And Jonathan Indian's gotten off to a great start this year. I just wonder, defensively, what makes the most sense at some point. And it doesn't. I'm not going to keep killing India for his defense because I don't have enough sample size this year to know whether or not he's continuing to show the metrics that he's not a quote-unquote good defensive second baseman. But what do we do, Nick? I mean, let's just say, for instance, Barrero, it sounds like a good problem to have, but Jose Barrero is clearly, in my opinion, again, I don't have statistical analytics to back this up. I'm just watching with my eyeballs. Barrero is such a better defender than anyone else on the infield when I'm watching the game, that if he can just hit a little bit, he should and will play hopefully every day here soon. That's why I guess I have this pessimism towards Newman from the start. It's because I don't want to say I don't care, but I just don't care about him. He doesn't interest me at all. I watch him play and it's okay, he's not going to be a part of the future here. He's hogging up a spot on the infield and the lineup. And with all due respect, Nick, he's not killing it either. So why isn't Jose Barrero playing more? You have an answer for that, or can you give me an answer?
How many games has Barrero sat?
Too many. What you gonna say?
What?
Well, he came in today. It looks like he. I mean, again, I don't know. Was he? I didn't watch everything, but he looks like he came in and played center field today.
Yeah, but I think today was the second day set. Yeah, I don't know.
That's 2 days in a row. I mean, how many days? I don't. What's respectable from your standpoint? What do you think? I mean, if there's 6 games in a week, so 6 out of 7 days we got a game. How many games should Barrero play?
5, probably, if he's going to be on this roster. I mean, I think 5's probably respectable, and I don't know. We'll see kind of how the usage goes throughout the year. I do agree. I don't think Barrero has been all that bad. I think there's a big difference between Barrero hitting 143 right now and Barrero hitting 143 last year. If you've watched the games, he's looked much more comfortable at the plate. He's taken much better swings. He hasn't. Last year, he just didn't have competitive at-bats at all for the most part. And he's had pretty competitive at-bats so far this year. So I think he definitely deserves a much longer run at this. I just think Newman's just a dude, is another right-handed bat with a lineup with a lot of lefties like Fraley and Friedel and Vossler and Votto when he comes back, and Benson, and the list goes on. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't.
He's above average in exit velocity this year, if that's something that you care about. I'm not saying that's the end-all, be-all, but to your point, I think Barrero has hit the ball relatively hard this year when he's not been rewarded for it yet.
And I just looked at this trace. This is why you can't do small samples for defense using the metrics. It says Barrero to this point this year has been below average and out above average, and says India's been above. So that's obviously not going to be the case over a 162.
Carrick brings up a point, and I was going to mention this, and I don't want it to go unsaid. That's why I'm interrupting you. Is he said that Barrero exited a game with a slight injury a few days ago. It was all. I feel like we're close to a week at this point on that. He's been in games after that. I don't think that that's really a lingering situation, and I still feel like when Barrero came out of that game, I think he was begging to stay in the game, and they just wanted to be super, super cautious about it, which is fine. I'm not saying that's a bad move by David Bell or the trainer that was out there with him. All right, that's enough about Barrero and Newman and that whole situation. Any other topics? I know we got the chat. We got some things popping in here. Carrick also asks, any news on Carlos George? Why did Cam Collier exit the game today? I don't know if we have that information. Nick, do you have anything on that?
It's really hard to find information about Daytona, but I was actually looking at that myself. I think that Daytona is just being really cautious with a lot of these guys. It looks like they have about 11 legit hitters on that roster. So it looks like they're mixing up playing time. I saw someone that works for one of the teams that said he thought it was just them, getting them 2 at-bats and then letting someone else come in. So I don't think there's anything more about that. But yeah, I didn't see anything that said he got injured or anything like that. And I know several of our guys who follow the Reds minor leagues close, they didn't say anything about that today. But yeah, I was not locked into the Daytona Tortugas today. I got some numbers for you. If we're ready for that.
Yeah, rip through that. We'll have some fun with the chat at the very end, and then we'll sign off, obviously, at the very, very end once we run through some of these chat questions and some other topics of conversation that people might be interested in. So run through the Reds MILB really quick, Nick. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's only 2 teams in action on Sunday. A couple of them off for Easter. Chattanooga and Dayton did not play today. But Daytona, they swept their first series. That loaded Daytona Tortugas team swept St. Lucie in the 3-game series. They won today 6-3. Cam Collier, as mentioned, he was 1 for 1 with a walk, so he had 2 plate appearances. Then he was pulled. He was pulled for another decent prospect. I can't remember who, but I think it was just they're just rotating guys in and out here earlier in the year. Sal Stewart 1 for 5, did strike out twice. Logan Tanner, the catcher, second-round pick last year, 1 for 5, had a double. And then Victor Acosta was 1 for 5. And then Louisville lost 8-1 to Indianapolis. A lot of rehab assignments in this one. We'll run through here real quick. Senzel 0 for 3 with a walk. Joey Votto, and I want to go back to him here in a second. 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts. And Votto, I think we're seeing why he started the year in AAA. I think it's pretty fair to say. Hitting 143 with a 512 OPS through his first 28 at-bats with Louisville. If I did my math right, I think his rehab assignment would end on April 20th. They have 20 days, and their first game was on April 1st. I'm pretty sure the way that works is it's the first game with Louisville, not when the Reds started the season, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But a couple other guys, Matt McClain 0 for 2, 2 walks today, and then like I mentioned, Luke Weaver pitched really, really well in his debut, and then Lucas Sims also made his rehab debut, 1-inning pitch, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 1 strikeout. So help on the way, I think, with Sims and Santillan in the bullpen. Help on the way with Weaver probably taking Overton's spot. I'm guessing Overton maybe gets 1 more start. If Weaver was already going 4 innings, I don't think they're going to have Weaver go out and make 4 or 5 rehab starts. I don't see that. I think they want to get him up here and see what he's like. They signed him for a reason. So yeah, we'll see that. CJ Elfers, really great comment here. Kral said today we'll be patient with Votto, Senzel, and the other 3 pitchers. This is their spring training, and yeah, I mean there's no reason not to be. And unfortunately, though, with these pitchers that we're hoping to get back in the bullpen, they might be replace the other guys that get hurt, because that's just how these things work. There's going to be injuries all year. So Sims and Santillan might, unfortunately, just fix a hole that's created from another injury down the road. So,
yeah, and I think a lot of these guys that are, I guess what I would say average players in Major League Baseball from time to time, I often wonder if they got sent to AAA and had a year in AAA, sometimes I wonder if their numbers would be just as good as some of the guys that are down there already. I mean, I don't want to sit here and say that Joey Votto, of all people, would struggle at AAA this year. But listen, Votto's getting older. He's coming off of injury. There's a lot of question marks there. Hopefully he can find a way to feel good again and bounce back, and he has a decent end of his career here in Cincinnati. I don't want to automatically assume that he's going to be gone, but I am very, very confident in saying, Nick, that it would take almost a miracle for Joey Votto being a Reds uniform next year. So, I think we're all hoping that he comes back healthy and at least can finish this thing out the way that maybe he'd hope, and we all would hope for. So, any updates on TJ? I don't have anything on that end. I know that I'm concerned for him, period. I don't. If I had to put my hand up in the air right now and say whether or not he's ever going to be the same, I think the easy answer is going to be no. I hate to say that, but
he had a setback right before spring training started, and I haven't heard anything else since then. I don't even think he started any sort of competitive pitching or pitching in the complex or anything like that. So he's going to be quite a while away. I imagine he'll probably start throwing a little bit in the complex, and they'll send him on a rehab assignment. I assume he'll get the full 20 days on a rehab assignment, like a spring training for him. Yeah, I'd love to see him back. He was awesome.
Yeah, he was.
That 2 months, that the Reds had him and as the closer in 2021, just really, really stunk that he got derailed. But he's come back from Tommy John surgery, so
I know, but
it's one of those things where some guys just come back and it's relatively simple after they go through their whole rehab, and other guys it just kind of lingers and takes a long time to get back and acclimated, and some guys just it never happens.
Am I wrong in thinking that wasn't his first situation with TJ, or no?
I think it was a second. I think you're correct on that.
That's my concern. Is like, yeah, listen, coming back from Tommy John once is one thing, but I mean, listen, there's twice, and there's it's not just the physical nature at some point too. Like, and I give TJ unbelievable amount of respect and immense, like, I guess respect's the only word that comes to mind. Is just like that he's putting forth the effort to try to come back. I mean, that's in and of itself is something. But I would worry about his mental a little bit too when he comes back, because at the end of the day, it's not just about your physical attributes when you're on the mound, but it's also your mental. And I would be concerned a little bit of whether or not that's going to be a concern for him when you've already blown out your arm 2 times. But that's, I don't know. I don't want to say that he's done for sure, because I think that to play parallels with the Masters a little bit, everyone thought that Tiger Woods was completely finished too, and he came back and he won another green jacket. Back, I think it was 2019. So there's your multi-sport language here on the Sunday of the Masters. Other things here, Nick, at the very bottom, OGG Ghost asks if Kevin Newman gets dealt at the deadline. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I don't know who would want him. I guess he could be a useful utility player, but I'm sorry, man.
God, I need a big night from Kevin tomorrow. Kevin, if you're listening, I know you're dialed into Chatterbox Reds at 10:37 on a Sunday night, Kevin, but I need a big night from you. You got to give me something here, man.
Oh man, I don't know, man. I just don't know who would want him. I don't. Yeah, it takes 2 to tango. You know what I'm saying? Just because one person wants something doesn't mean that it's going to happen. All right. Any other questions we have in the chat? I know I'm missing stuff maybe that I haven't looked through yet. Overall, though, listen, we're 500. I mean, we're 500, Nick. We said we wanted to be right around 500 in the month of April. Well, we got a tough series coming up with Atlanta, and I guess maybe David Bell is a genius in sitting Ashcraft, and we got a guy thrown against him now. I don't know, still don't believe in that, but
2-0, and Connor Overton starts this year.
Yeah, maybe we should run him out there all year. And maybe we will.
I tell you, Trace, there's a big difference in the feeling of 3-5 and 4-4. I'll tell you that.
Well, anytime you get swept, Nick, no doubt. I mean, you're right.
It's nice. Yeah, I mean, look, I think if we would have said, "Hey, Reds are going to start the year 4-4," probably be like, "Hey, sign me up." Look, Reds won their 4th game last year on May 7th. I was there at Great American Ballpark in front of like 20 of my closest friends and family. That was the entire stadium, and that was a really rough April. And hey, they've already matched that so far. Hopefully, this is a tough week. 7 games against the Braves and Phillies. These are our 2 tough teams. We saw that with the Phillies, but hey, the Phillies are going to have to come to Great American Ballpark for 4. I think that's a series. I think the Reds can split that. I think that's possible. You just hope you don't go down to Atlanta and get swept as well. But that's a really good team in Atlanta. That is, I think they're the betting favorites right now to win the World Series.
The Braves, yeah.
Yeah. So
the sports books love the Braves. I mean, they were who were they favorites against? That I kind of scratched my head a little bit the other
Astros
day.
were the other team, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I think other thoughts while we're kind of sitting around here on a Sunday night of Easter, and we got a lot to be thankful for here. And one of them is that we have some young prospects that I think are genuinely good baseball players. It's not like that's the main thing I think that I take away from some of these guys is like the Ellie De La Cruzes of the world. yes, they could be the best baseball player on the planet, and I'm not seeing Ellie enough to even have a opinion of him one way or the other. And obviously, anyone that's seen him raves about him. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is like a lot of these guys, I feel like, are going to be very good, consistent players instead of, as we've talked about before, where you get some of these prospects that come up and they have raw talent and they have incredible tools, but they're not as skilled. If that makes sense. They're not as polished of a player to where you have incredible great runs and then you have 2 or 3 weeks of just maybe poor play. Spencer Steer, I don't know, man. I mean, did we fleece those guys or what? I mean, is Spencer Steer going to end up being a everyday player for this team for the next 10 years? Is that a possibility? I think it can be. I know when you say this stuff,
Christian Encarnacion and Strain in that same trade.
Yeah, of all the trades, Nick, which one do you think so far looks like it's going to turn out the best? It's got to be that one. No? Yeah,
I would say that one just because you didn't give up as much as the Castillo one. Now, the return the Reds got for Castillo is great on paper. I think it's still great on paper, but you got Spencer Steer and Christian Encarnacion Strand for Tyler Mahle, who, all due respect to Tyler Mahle, has not really looked all that great with the Twins so far in his 3 months or whatever.
Even if he was, like, that's the one thing I don't. That's the one thing that we always do. Like, oh, was it a good trade or a bad trade? It's like, listen, even if Tyler Mahle went and threw well, Nick, like, it still can be a great trade for the Reds because Tyler Mahle, like it or not, in 2 years when we're ready to go, he might not be a guy.
I tell you what, I'm going to throw this out there right now. This will be the Nick Krall masterclass. I would love this. Reds sign Tyler Mahle at the end of the offseason. Sign him back. They get 2 players for him. He kind of has a shaky year this year. Say, hey, Tyler, you had a lot of success in Cincinnati. Let's come back on a short deal. Let's get the band back together. That would be a straight-up masterclass of how you do business. I don't think Tyler Mahle – I think Tyler Mahle wants to play in California. But no, one other point. I meant to mention this. Ellie De La Cruz and Christian Encarnacion Strand both resumed baseball activities today. No timetable on their debut for AAA Louisville, but when we have McLean, Ellie, and Christian Encarnacion Strand hitting back for Louisville, it's going to be must-see MILB TV.
Right. Might have to make the drive down to Louisville for something like that. Or Louisville, or Louisville, however you say that city. I know that's been a hot topic of conversation throughout the past at Chatterbox Sports. Connor Phillips and Andrew Abbott soon. Hopefully, those guys obviously look good so far. Sessa is going to be a free agent next year. Should he be traded? Carrick's saying he should be traded, and I think earlier somebody, I don't know which name was asking, Joseph was asking whether or not he should be traded. I think Nick and I are both on the same page when it comes to bullpen arms. If you think you can get something back for a bullpen arm, and it's relatively meaningful, then you send them away. I know people are going to hate that. They're going to kill us for that, Nick, because we have a bad bullpen already, and the city's already complained about a bullpen.
Yeah, I doubt anyone's going to give up much for 2 months of Luis Sessa. But
saying they don't want him?
I'm not saying they don't want him, but
what if you put? Now hear me out. What if you put Newman in the trade with him?
Oh man, now you're really putting an attractive offer together. But I think Luis Sessa has value to this team, even if he just stays all year, because he's a guy that you can have in your bullpen or as a starter. He can go back and forth, and I think there's some value to that. Instead of calling up some guy that's not ready to make a spot start, you're giving the ball to Luis Sessa, who you know is going to go out there. He's going to throw strikes. He's going to be competitive. And so I think that has some value to this team, especially when you have a lot of young pitchers and you have a bullpen just chocked full of guys that don't have a lot of big league experience. So I think Luis Sessa might be that Kyle Farmer type player that the Reds just decide, hey, we're just going to hold on to him all year, so we have kind of that semi-veteran to get us through the season. I see Luis Sessa being that same guy. I would almost bet that Luis Sessa doesn't get traded. I think the Reds are just going to want him to be on the team all year, help them, get through innings unless Luis Cessa just somehow has this like magical run of 2 months as a starter and can actually bring you some in return. Then yeah, sure, absolutely, you have to trade him. But right now, I don't think anyone's going to give up anything that makes it more valuable than having a guy that just helps you get through the season with competitive innings.
All right, I want to end this or close to end this with Adam's question, or Adam says, I'm curious if the Reds are going to stick with 3 catchers all year. I don't.
Someone's going to get hurt. I hate to be the guy that someone's going to get hurt, but how many catcher injuries were there last year? There was like 8 catcher injuries.
Okay,
that's
nonstop. That's fine. Then guess what? Then when someone gets hurt, we'll bring up the second guy. Like, I mean, I don't know how long we're going to keep 3 catchers when I think how many at bats does the two catchers behind Stevenson even have right now? Like
I would
7?
argue though, Trace, how many at bats does whoever that roster spot get? Like, with the DH, your bench is just.
Are you going to bring up? And again, maybe I'm being naive here, but are you going to bring up a pin arm? Like, is there a chance where we're not bringing in a utility guy?
The problem also is Kirk Casale obviously doesn't have options. Luke Malley doesn't have options either. You can't send him down to AAA. He can refuse the assignment and go sign on with someone else. So I think the Reds want 3 catchers just because they are expecting some injuries. They want to have protection when they're playing Stevenson at first base DH. Remember, the Reds had a ton of catching injuries last year, but they also had that game where Tyler Stevenson was DHing and got hurt in like the first or second inning in San Diego. They had to lose the DH for the whole game. So I just, how valuable is that last roster spot? Like, that guy's probably sitting on the bench anyways, getting a handful of at-bats. How many at-bats is like a guy like Stuart Fairchild even got, who's the next guy up? I mean, he hasn't played all that much.
No. So that's all I'm saying. Maybe there's a bullpen arm there. Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, it just seems wild to have 3 catchers, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Stevenson's also playing a lot of first base though in DH. So he's like 2.5 catchers.
Okay. You keep, and that's fair. I love it. I mean, you're just trying like hell to rationalize why there's 3 catchers on the roster, and I'm just telling you, I'd like to have another guy that can come out of the bullpen. That's all. Just another guy. Who? I don't know.
We'll ship him back and forth. They already shipped Kudel down to AAA. Herg pitched 2 today. Maybe he'll get shipped down tomorrow. They'll bring up another fresh arm. Those guys, they can shuffle back and forth.
Yeah, because they got options. I get it. Maybe so. At the end of the day,
I'm picking my battles. I'm not gonna lose sleep over the Reds having Luke Malley on the roster as a guy that's sitting at the end of the bench. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't move the needle one way or the other.
All right, Carrick does something that we all talk about from time to time. Here we go, Carrick. We're not going to do that, are we, tonight? Maybe we should. Maybe we shouldn't. I don't know. But here's the thing with India, okay? I would trade India for the right deal. Yeah. Golly, that's such a toxic situation. I don't know. I've gone back and forth on this. I just, at some point, you got to build your team around some kind of leadership, some kind of foundation, some kind of identity. And India, like it or not, for someone that was on the for someone that had the opinion of if he got really hot this year and was playing great and you could get just an unbelievable deal for him, I would just strike while the iron's hot. And maybe, again, I'm not trying to compare these two, but like maybe it's like a Scooter Gennett situation where a guy just plays incredibly well for 2 years and then he's not as good as everyone thinks he is, but this guy was the NL Rookie of the Year, okay? He's also come out this year as a quote-unquote leader. He has played incredibly well. This team would not be 4-4 if Jonathan India wasn't leading off the game for the Cincinnati Reds. I'm not going to sit up here and act like Jonathan India might not be somebody that you want to build your franchise with. I'm not saying around. I'm not saying that he's going to be like the centerpiece, but I just don't know if we can continue to rely on the idea that these young guys are going to produce when they get to the big leagues. As much as I like McClain, He's not proven he can do anything at the big league level. You could make the argument that Barrero, as many people that can't stand Barrero, and there's a good amount of them out there, that Barrero looked incredibly great when he was at the minor leagues and he got to the big leagues and he just hasn't done it. Now, I would argue he's not got an opportunity, and I would like to see him get opportunities. But, Nick, I know we've talked about this at length at times, and it can become nauseating. I don't think that you can do anything with India for two reasons. One is the perception of the franchise, where this quote-unquote, and I know we shouldn't do that, but listen, if they traded Jonathan India, Great American Ballpark might burn to the ground. And once they rebuild it, I'm still not sure that we're going to be in a good place just because we traded guys. So, you want to get into that topic, or you just want to save it for another day?
Yeah, I totally get what Carrick is saying, and I think that maybe if the Reds were in a healthier spot with their public perception, then maybe it would be more of an entertainable idea. You have to weigh all this stuff, and we also have to remember the flaws that we see in Jonathan India. Every other major league general manager sees those same flaws too. They know that he's not a great defensive second baseman, so are teams going to give up a massive package that changes your franchise for Jonathan India? I don't even know the answer to that. So,
how much of a value does he have if he moves to third base? You know more about this than I do. Like, does his value go significantly down if someone was like, "Listen, we like him as a player. We're going to put him at third base instead of second"?
He has never played third base at the major league level, so no one knows how good defensively he is. So I think the guy's, if you're not going to be a decent defensive second baseman, I have a hard time seeing you shift over to third base and being good there. So I don't.
Those two positions are significantly different, in my opinion. I think second base is significantly more demanding than third base.
Yeah, but I would say the counter that would be, if the Reds really thought that third base would be a better spot for him, wouldn't they have already maybe tried that? You know, I don't know what their evaluations of him defensively, if they think that, you know, there is any difference. I think he's destined to move to the outfield or become this like guy that plays a couple times a week at second base and DHs a lot. I think that's where he's going to end up. I think the Reds are kind of giving him this season to, hey, this is your chance to, you know, show your improvement, show the work you put in. If you want to be an everyday second baseman, and then they're kind of pushing the cart down the hill a little ways and saying,
kicking the can,
you can't kick. Yeah, that's the expression. Kicking the can to the end of the year, and we'll deal with this issue then, because right now it's not really an issue with where the Reds are.
Sean, we've talked about this before. There is a lot of guys coming up, but Nick always brings up the point that injuries are going to happen. People aren't going to play well. This all will probably sort itself out to a small degree. Is Marte going to be maybe the guy that we all hope he is and wants to be, and then he comes up and then he's not as good as we maybe had hoped? I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many pieces of this that are unanswered that that's kind of where, like, I guess a lot of my distaste for Kevin Newman playing a lot comes from, because I just need to see what we got. I don't care about a 29-year-old guy that when I watch him play shortstop, he looks inept at times defensively. And I know Carrick's being nice to India playing second base, saying he's a better defender than given credit for. Maybe a little bit if you've never watched him play defense. But I don't know. Again, like, I'm not saying he's a terrible defender, a horrible defender, but when you got guys like Barrero, McLean, I don't know, maybe in a few years Edwin Arroyo becomes a guy, like, those guys are so much better defensively that he just isn't going to stay. He can't stick in the infield if you're going to have a bunch of good defenders come up. And maybe, to be fair to India, because I think he takes that personally, he's taken the whole that whole defensive thing personally. India can continue to get better. Like, guys can improve. They can get better. So, for all intents and purposes, hell, India could end up becoming an incredibly good second baseman defensively. I guess my thing is, when I watch India play, I don't know if the athleticism's all there, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like a little bit of stiffness from time to time. And again, that's me looking at it from a non-analytical standpoint, just me watching it as a person that played.
I got one. I mean, I don't
ahead.
like dumping on India because he's a good player. He's a guy that has outperformed what anyone's expectations would have been offensively from when he came up. No one expected him
Right.
Going into 2021 to be a dude. Like he was kind of like the forgotten guy, but since he's come up, there's 39 qualified second basemen and outs above average. Jonathan India is ranked 39th with minus 18 outs above average. The next guy is minus 10. So the numbers are just glaring. So again, I don't like dumping on the guy, but he's a really, really good player. But at the same time, I can't ignore those numbers. They're right there. You know.
Yeah. Sean said I'd rather see McLean struggle than Newman struggle. I mean, I wouldn't, because that would mean that McLean's struggling. I get your sentiment. I get your point. But I also think that I'd like to see. I mean, are we as a fan base like gonna sit here and act like Jose Barrero might not be a great player? Like I maybe it's because I didn't really get a chance to watch as many games last year towards the end of the year as everyone else did. I didn't watch nearly as many as you guys did. And so I don't have the distaste for what you guys got to see last year. But when I see Jose Barrero this year play, I guess I'd like to see more. I'd like to know if Barrero for sure can't play at this level. Like how terrible would we feel? I'm going to paint a terrible picture for a minute, okay? You want to hear some pessimism? I'm going to paint some pessimism. Ready? Oh. How terrible would we feel if Jose Barrero plays half the games this year, Kevin Newman plays half the games this year, Jose Barrero ends up hitting 225 because he just doesn't play every day. He lacks confidence. Like it or not, guys know if there's pressure to perform, and some guys, they don't play well with that situation going on. They play better if they're just said, you know what, this is your shortstop position. You're going to play every day until I'm going to give you 60 games. Take it or leave it. And yes, you could say maybe they did that a little bit last year, but I'm talking about this year. Let's say, for instance, he doesn't play well enough for us to want to keep him. We do some kind of back-end trade to just say, okay, we got too many logjam guys. And next thing you know, Jose Barrero is an all-star 2 years from now. And everyone's like, oh, I can't believe Nick Krall did that. What are we doing? I mean, that would be worse than him hitting 150, 120 games into this year. That's where I'm at. And maybe I'm being like, I don't want to say I don't want to win, Nick. I genuinely could care less about winning this year. I mean that wholeheartedly. Yes, I'll get excited when they come back in the ninth inning and win, but I don't care if Kevin Newman hits a grand slam tomorrow to win the game for the Reds. It means nothing to me. Maybe I'm being an idiot for saying that, but that's where I'm at.
Let's see what the at-bats look like. Let's give us a month. Can we table it a little bit?
All right, fine.
And say,
Nick,
all right.
I'm going to put an at-bat number on this. If he doesn't have,
oh man,
find it. I'm going to give you a fair at-bat number. I'm going to look at the schedule. Go ahead. You can try to fill time while I dig this up.
I don't know.
I mean, you act like Barrero act like he's gotten a fair shot this year.
But he left the game on Monday, and he didn't play on Tuesday because he left the game hurt, right? Like that was, I'm assuming, the reason he didn't play on Tuesday. And then Friday got 4 at-bats. Saturday he got 2 at-bats. Did he get lifted on Saturday? I can't even...
Yeah, I don't know.
Or did he come into the game on Saturday? I don't know. I don't know too how much of the injury that he left with has played into his playing time also.
Yeah.
We
have a little bit of a history playing retread guys, man. Am I being upset? Am I being a little too pessimistic on this show right now by saying that? I'm just saying we have a little bit of a history of holding on to guys, acting like they are somebody that they're truly, in my opinion, not. I mean, it goes all the way back to Ryan Ludwig for me. My distaste for this franchise and what they do. They get a guy, they pick a guy up who's hit 205 the 2 years before this with whoever he was with, I think the Cardinals. We get Ryan Ludwig. He's this big-time leader, and he plays great. And God almighty, I love Ryan Ludwig for that. Thank you. But then we turn around and we sign the guy to a 2-year deal like he's freaking 24 years old. And he goes out and he hits $175. And we're like, well, what happened? I don't know. He hit 210 2 years ago, 2 years in a row, Nick. Scooter Gennett, I mean, he's the next Brandon Phillips, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, he's not good? What happened? I don't know what happened. Maybe he's the guy that's on the back of the baseball card. All right, that's enough. I love Jesus, and then today's Easter. I'm done dragging Kevin Newman and his family through the mud, and I'm also done with me being pessimistic. But if Jose Barrero doesn't have a bunch of at-bats by the end of this month, God be my witness, I'm going to be going on a rampage.
I agree. Jose Barrero needs to play. If he's on this roster, he needs to play. I'm willing to see how this shakes out over the next couple of weeks, but let's leave it at that.
Hey, the Reds did win today, by the way. I don't want people to forget that.
4-4, Trace. 4-4, and you know what, Trace? Graham Ashcraft is on the hill tomorrow. Graham Ashcraft is on the hill tomorrow. I'm excited to see him pitch again. I mean, that was a incredible debut. He's going to have a big test against a very, very good Atlanta lineup. Going up against Bryce Elder, a guy that is a embarrassment of riches for the Atlanta Braves. Started the year in AAA, came up. He would probably be a starter on just about everyone else. But he's a guy that has had better numbers in the major leagues than he's had in the minor leagues the last couple of years. So interesting. Doesn't throw all that hard. Fastball was only topping out at like 80, or it was averaging 89.5 in his last start.
Throw him the heater.
His bread and butter is his slider. Both these guys never faced the opponent. So Ashcraft's first start against the Braves, Elder's first start against the Reds. And I'll let you take it from here, Trace.
All right, guys. As always, you can check out Off the Bench Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. till noon with Tom Brenneman if that is something of interest to you. But as I always say, more importantly, guys, please do me a favor. Get on your podcast app, whatever your favorite one is. Please download, rate, and review Chatterbox Reds. It is coming out every single morning, as you know, right after Reds games. But most importantly, say a little prayer tonight that Jose Barrero is going to get some at-bats this month so Trace can just smooth things out. But more importantly than that, go Reds. Take care, everybody.